Estimation is the process of predicting how much time, effort, and resources will be required to complete a particular task or piece of work in an agile team. Agile teams use estimation as a tool for planning, prioritization, and tracking progress. It is a critical part of agile development. It is used to plan the work, to track progress, and to communicate with stakeholders. The purpose of estimation in agile teams is to provide a framework for planning and prioritization. Estimation helps the team to understand how much work can be completed in a given sprint or iteration, and to make informed decisions about which tasks or features to prioritize. It also provides a basis for tracking progress and measuring the team's velocity. For example, if a team estimates that they can complete 50 story points worth of work in a 2-week sprint, they can use this information to plan which user stories or features to focus on during that sprint. They can also use this information to track their progress and adjust their plans as needed. It's worth noting that agile teams recognize that estimation is not an exact science, and that there will always be some level of uncertainty and variability in the estimation process. However, by using estimation as a tool for planning and prioritization, teams can work more efficiently and effectively towards their goals. Types of estimation. 1. Top-down estimation. It is a technique where estimates are made from the highest level of the project down to the lowest level. For example, a project manager might start by estimating the total cost of the project. Then, they might break the project down into smaller tasks and estimate the cost of each task. Finally, they would add up the costs of all the tasks to get a total estimate for the project. 2. Bottom-up estimation. It is a technique where estimates are made from the lowest level of the project up to the highest level. For example, a developer might start by estimating the time it would take to write a single line of code. Then, they might estimate the time it would take to write a function, a class, or a module. Finally, they would add up the times for all the individual tasks to get an estimate for the entire project. 3. T-shirt sizing. It is a technique where estimates are made using a scale of small, medium, large, and extra large. This technique is often used in agile teams because it is quick and easy to understand. For example, a team might estimate that a feature is a small task, a medium task, a large task, or an extra large task. 4. Story points. This technique involves assigning a point value to each user story or feature based on its complexity and size. The team typically uses a scale from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 to assign points to each story. For example, a small and simple feature may be assigned a point value of 1, while a complex and large feature may be assigned a point value of 8 or higher. 5. Planning poker. This technique involves each team member making an independent estimate of how much effort will be required to complete the task or feature, and then sharing and discussing their estimates as a group to come to a consensus. This technique is often used for estimating the effort required to complete a particular user story or feature. Story points. Story points are a unit of measurement used in Agile and Scrum to estimate the relative size of a user story or a feature. It is a way to estimate the amount of work that needs to be done to complete a task or a requirement. Story points are a measure of the complexity, risk, and effort involved in implementing a user story. The idea behind story points is to assign a value to a user story or feature that is relative to other stories or features. This allows the team to estimate the effort required to complete a given feature or story in comparison to other features or stories. For example, if a user story is assigned 5 story points, it means that it is more complex and requires more effort to complete than a story with 3 story points. Story points are typically assigned during the backlog refinement or sprint planning meeting, where the development team works with the product owner to estimate the effort required to complete each user story. The team can use a variety of techniques, such as planning poker, to assign story points to each story or feature. Story points are not time-based, but rather they are a measure of the complexity and effort involved in completing a story. Reference story pointing. It is a technique used in Agile teams for estimating the effort required to complete a user story or feature. It involves using a known story or feature as a reference point for comparison to other stories or features on the backlog. The reference story is typically one that the team has previously completed and for which they know the level of effort required. The team can then use this reference point to compare the relative effort of other stories or features on the backlog. For example, if the reference story took 2 days to complete and a new story is estimated to be twice as complex, the team may estimate that it will take 4 days to complete. The Fibonacci sequence, it is a commonly used scale for reference story pointing in Agile teams. The sequence is as follows: 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, and so on. Each number in the sequence is the sum of the 2 preceding numbers. In story pointing, each number in the sequence represents a relative level of effort required to complete the user story or feature. For example, a story that is estimated to be a 5 is considered to be more complex than a 3 but less complex than an 8. Using the Fibonacci sequence in reference story pointing allows for a relative estimation of effort rather than an absolute estimation. This can be useful in situations where the team is dealing with uncertainty or complexity in the work to be done. It can also help to prevent overconfidence or underestimation of effort, as each point in the sequence represents a larger increase in effort than the previous point. Factors that influence story points. 1. Complexity. The complexity of the user story is one of the main factors that influence story points. The more complex a user story is, the higher the number of story points assigned to it. 2. Risk. The level of risk associated with the user story can also influence the number of story points assigned to it. Higher risk user stories may require more effort and resources to complete, and those may be assigned a higher number of story points. 3. Uncertainty. Uncertainty around the user story, such as unclear requirements or a lack of knowledge about the technology required, can also influence the number of story points assigned to it. 4. Dependencies. Dependencies on other user stories or external systems can also impact the number of story points assigned to a user story. 5. Experience and expertise of the team. The experience and expertise of the development team can also play a role in assigning story points. The more experienced team may be able to complete the user story with fewer story points than a less experienced team. 6. Tools and technologies. The tools and technologies required to complete the user story can also influence the number of story points assigned to it. More complex or unfamiliar tools and technologies may require more effort and resources to complete, and thus may be assigned a higher number of story points. It's important to note that story points are a relative measure and are based on the team's collective understanding of the level of effort required to complete the user story. As such, the factors that influence story points can vary depending on the team's experience, expertise, and context. Differences between story points and effort. Definition: story points are a relative measure of the complexity and uncertainty of a user story, while effort is an absolute measure of the time and resources required to complete the task. Focus: story points focus on the overall level of effort required to complete the user story, taking into account factors such as complexity, risk, and uncertainty. Effort, on the other hand, focuses on the actual time and resources required to complete a specific task. Story points are typically used for high-level planning and estimation, while effort is used for more detailed planning and tracking of progress. Unit: story points are a unitless measure, while effort is typically measured in hours, days, or weeks. Subjectivity: story points are subjective and based on the team's collective understanding of the level of effort required, while effort is more objective and based on actual time and resources used. Flexibility: story points are more flexible and can be adjusted as the team's understanding of the user story evolves, while effort is typically fixed once the task is defined. Importance of estimation. Estimation is an important aspect of Agile development as it helps teams to plan and prioritize their work. Here are some of the key benefits of estimation. 1. Prioritization. Estimation allows teams to prioritize their work based on the effort required to complete each user story or feature. This helps to ensure that the most important or highest value work is completed first. 2. Planning. Estimation helps teams to plan their work and create realistic sprint goals. This allows the team to commit to a certain amount of work for each sprint and helps to avoid overcommitment or underdelivery. 3. Transparency. Estimation provides transparency into the amount of effort required to complete each user story or feature. This helps stakeholders to understand the level of effort required to deliver a particular feature or piece of functionality. 4. Collaboration. Estimation requires collaboration between team members as they work together to understand the requirements and estimate the level of effort required. This promotes teamwork and helps to build a shared understanding of the work to be done. 5. Continuous improvement. By estimating the level of effort required to complete each user story or feature, teams can track their progress and identify areas for improvement. This allows the team to continuously improve their estimation skills and refine their approach over time. Questions. 1. Would you with illustration explain what estimation is? 2. Could you explain some benefits of estimation to a team and the organization? 3. Would you mention and explain with illustrations some types of estimation? 4. Would you explain what you understand by story points? 5. What is the difference between estimation and story points? 6. Could you explain what you understand as reference story pointing? 7. Could you explain with illustrations the factors that influence story pointing? 8. Could you with illustrations relate story point to effort? 9. Could you with illustrations explain the importance of estimation?